just want to start setting, the mindset really. So start looking at, asking questions of yourself. So you're understanding where your data currently resides. So it could be in databases scattered all over the place. It could be locked away in software. It could be file servers. It could be even stuff that you're not quite certain on how to unlock it. How many users am I getting to my website? There's data there, but you're not. It's stored somewhere, but you're not unlocking the potential of that data set. It's just trying to bring that together. And we're looking at how is it currently stored. Feeding onto, can you trust this data set? It's all well and good data being logged somewhere and containing information, but can you trust that data source and correlate that with another source? Is that the only version of that data? Is it accurate? Is it up to date? Is it historical data? How up to the date is it till data? Things like that. That's really important. Just trying to make sure that we can develop trust around there and the security of this data. What type of data are we dealing with? Is it personal identifiable data? Is it tracking data? There's hundreds of different types of data that we need to kind of map and understand its life cycle as well. And that follows into the governance perspective as well. So things like personal identifiable data. Fine, we've understood we handle that type of data. How do we handle that type of data? How are we enforcing governance controls? GDPR, it's the big control that everyone has to align itself to, especially when you're dealing with customer data sets and sensitive information controls. How are we making sure that you've got the right to be forgotten, and you're not tracking people for unnecessarily long times and things like that. You need to be able to demonstrate the controls, and even moving it towards cyber essentials and ISO standards, things like that. There's a whole raft of controls that you need to be able to demonstrate to auditors and third parties that you're able to control your data flow as well. And looking at the data sets and how you're performing analysis on it at the moment. Are you performing analysis at the moment? That could even be the first question you ask yourself. Why are you not performing it? And how accurate is that analysis? And are you asking the right questions currently? And what other data sets can you start joining together to start making more interesting analysis from that as well? And then the big one, which is the big question really of why we're here, is how much of your business decision process does data play into that? Is it anecdotal? I think we should do this because I think that's a good idea, or is your business driven by actual data? And data driven decisions are part of the business operation, because if not, it should be potentially going forward as well. Then we look at moving things into a controlled state. So we deal with Microsoft technologies, we deal with Azure. We're talking about getting data potentially into Azure, or does it have to all go into Azure? Can it work in a hybrid state? I've got data that's locked with third-party vendors. I've got some data on premise. So we need to kind of look at this holistically and think, well, not everything needs to get pushed into Azure. What are the benefits for that? So we can think about things like management overhead. Actually, it makes sense for me to move towards an Azure SQL endpoint, because I don't want to have to manage the operating system. I don't want to have to manage the patching, the maintenance plans. I don't want to have a DBA in there to manage the operation of that server. Looking at things like latency and performance options. Doing things in the cloud. If everything, you've got this concept of data gravity. Doing everything from a single place in Azure, you've got efficiency in terms of latency. You're not having to worry about network connections and throttling and bandwidth and doing batch jobs at night because you don't want to saturate a network. You're doing things in Azure, so things are very closely coupled, and you will see performance increases through latency alone, and also the performance options, being able to scale on demand. You can turn things up, turn things down on demand. That's the whole point of cloud, is it's using the resources on demand and when you need them. Obviously you pay for them, but you're making sure that you pay for what it is you're actually using. You're not paying for that high ceiling of when you want to run analytics on premise. You're only paying for it when you use it. Even things like resilience, looking at recovery point and recovery target objectives. The data is a really important piece of your business, especially if you're making decisions from it. So losing data or not having data available to make decisions will impact the resilience of your business going forward. So we want to make sure that we can protect data, we can protect against erasure, we can protect against failure, replication issues, things like that. We want to make sure the infrastructure is robust enough to make sure that this data is accurate and in the right place at the right time as well. We've already talked about things, scale from a performance perspective, but there's also that from volume and cost. We're not having to buy for capacity. We're not having to chuck loads of disks into my on-premise SQL estate because I'm capturing more data. Well, we just buy more storage from Microsoft at that point. We set lifecycle policies to erase data after a certain amount of time, or we tier it. There's other techniques that we can look at. That means we deal with current operational data and historical data, but you're using the cloud to flex on demand from a volume, performance, and also a cost perspective as well. So when things aren't being used, we turn them off. We scale them down. We use automation. We use tools to be able to scale the platform up and down on demand. We talked about the governance and security policies, things in a single place. It's a lot easier to control. We're not having to worry about different access models. If I've got data stored in Salesforce, I've got data stored in Office 365, I've got some with a marketing agency that are delivering my website, I've got some over here with my CRM application. You've got different policies and different security controls and different security domains extended between different bodies. If you bring all that all together into a single place and brought people to your environment, they're all aligning to your security policy, they're all aligning to your governance standards, and your data, you've got some assurance that your data is protected, and you're mitigating the risks of any compromisation of that data as well. One of the biggest things from my perspective is once the data is in Azure, it unlocks that next generation of analytics services, and it unlocks all the interesting parts which Alex and our colleagues over at Edit will talk about, and that's unlocking components such as machine learning and artificial intelligence to help make close some of the gaps in the data, help align decisions in an easier way, and start training the data to do more for your organization as well. So it's a massive benefit of moving to cloud technology such as Azure as well.